Uh-oh. I have extra sounds going somewhere and I don't know where. There we go. Oh, right. The window that I used to pop out my chat. Whoopsie doodle. Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's live stream where we're going to just sort of play around a little bit with some Sublime Text stuff. This is a landmark, exciting episode 100 of Sublime Text Live. That is 100 non-consecutive weeks of hanging out with everybody in the chat, answering questions about Sublime Text, doing package and plugin development, and all that sort of great stuff. I cannot believe that it has hit this long. Of course, this doesn't count all of the live streams, mind you, because there are some live streams that happen in November, and those ones are on the alternate channel, and there were many more of those, but they just don't fall under the auspices of the Sublime Text Live coding / Sublime Text Live type action. Thank you to everybody who happens to show up tonight, because I realized just as it was time to go live that sometime between yesterday when I clicked, or not yesterday, the day before when I clicked to schedule the stream, and now the time changed from the time that it was set to the time that I actually did it, even though all I did was update the status of it. And I really I need a timer to remind, or an alarm rather, to remind me to do it, and I need another one to remind me to check it on like an hourly basis or something, because it tends to get all funky. But Dev P, thank you so much for the 100 videos there. Did I take vaccine? I have not yet. And Joe Bahiko, hello, welcome. Oh, and I have this thing as well, because I was unable to see what was actually going on there. Let's click this button. I don't know what that might actually do, but we'll see. Because there was totally something that I have never seen before in the chat. How is everybody doing? Oh my, that really pops a very large type of thing up, doesn't it? Yeah, I think that is new. At least I don't remember ever seeing that item there before, because I totally could have been polling people in the channel. Let's see. Beverages on standby. That'll work. Hey. So how is everybody's week going? We've had a couple of Sublime Text 4 dev releases in just the last couple of days, which is kind of exciting. Still have working on the side. Oh, yeah. Tabs versus spaces. You want me to start a holy war in my stream? We can do that in a little bit. Let's let that one run for a minute while we chat here. Or the perennial VI versus Emacs. We can hit a poll with all of the popular options there. Tabs versus spaces. You know what? I wonder if I'm allowed to vote in my own thing. I don't think I am. It's interesting. No. The end of quarter deadline's rough. We probably have something like that going on right now. I'm not entirely sure. Based on the timelines being what they are from the project that we're working on at work. Yeah, it would indeed lead to a massacre. I may have mentioned, I used Vim for 20 years as my main editor for everything except on Windows, because it was a bit of a pain there, and I don't tend to do a lot of editing work on Windows in the general case, at least before Sublime Text anyway. But the reason for that was just entirely because the coworker that was sort of guiding me into using Linux for the first time, that's the editor that he used, so that's the one that I use, because if you're going to want to ask questions, you probably want to ask questions of somebody that's available that can actually answer them, because that was sort of predating the internet to some small degree, because I am an old man that's been working at this place for a long time. Well, I guess it doesn't totally predate the internet, but the internet was a different place back then. It wasn't as ubiquitous as it is now. Why, we had internet on our phones, and it cost us hideous amounts of dollars per minute for, or not even per minute, for things happening. You could easily run up a $10 phone bill just looking to see if there was a movie on. But he had, and I thought it was great, a shirt with a father and a son hiding around the corner from some police driving by, and the son is asking why they're hiding, and the dad says, because we use VI and they use Emacs. And of course, the same place sold the same shirt flipped the other way as well. Sorry to hear about end of quarter deadlines. Hope everybody's having an okay. It's almost at the end of the month here too. So yeah, I never actually even thought of that. The main thing on my mind at the moment is that in a couple of days we got to trick a dog into taking a pill. Always a fun time, don't you know? So, let's say, I think we're probably, everything seems to be stable. You know, we always like to start, I like to start the live stream with a little bit of a banter with the chat, see what's going on, make sure that various things are going to, be stable, because we have had weird issues where connections bounce, and I would rather have that at the beginning of the stream than, in the middle, if things are going to go all haywire and doolally on us. Oh yes, he's okay. It's just his his monthly flea tick worm type operation. And I do play guitar, yes, and a little bit of keyboard as well, but more guitar. That's not even all of them. There's a couple more. The one in the very back there, that one there is a Epiphone SG400 Les Paul custom copy. This is an actual Gibson ES125 electroacoustic guitar. It's an old guitar, but it's also not a great guitar. It's an actual Gibson, but it's meant to be a student guitar, so it's not made of solid wood. And then I also have a Simon and Patrick Sitka Spruce acoustic out in the other room, and carefully scrolled away in the closet of Martin as well. I'm more of a folksy, finger-picking, strummy kind of guy, but I've always been interested in the sound of an acoustic guitar over an electric guitar. I have the electric because gear acquisition syndrome is a thing. Also, it allowed me to practice in a way that was a little bit quieter for my wife at times, because electric guitars without an amp don't really make a heck of a lot of noise. I actually got into playing guitar because I played Guitar Hero. I think we talked about that in the previous stream as well. And that monitor right there is going to be replaced with a different way for me to monitor, pun mildly intended, my video recordings, and it's going to have more HDMI ports on it. So I might be able to connect my old Switch to that as well. Ooh, that's a cool emote. All right. So I think we're probably ready to do the transition. I put this way far away. Oh, it's not even in a very good position either. That is entirely unfortunate. Oh, my goodness. And we have a Google window popped up here as well in front of the perennial Sublime Text. So, ostensibly, if you have questions about Sublime Text, setting it up, how to do something, how it works, feel free to drop those in the chat at any time throughout the entirety of the live stream. I should have a lower third here, but I don't think I have it actually enabled at all. But we are in live stream number 100, if you can believe it. That's not 100 on this channel. That's just 100 total. I have an alternate channel that I was doing live streams on before I swapped to doing them here. So we picked up here in the late 80s, I think. I can't even remember now. My gosh, it has been a while. But it is some exciting time. As a matter of fact, we could do a little bit of this. Surprise! Because I still have those stuff set up from back when we did the Sublime Text and Sublime Merge license giveaways a couple of months ago. So yeah, we've had a couple of Sublime Text builds. Oh, should I put the cursor in this one? In the dev series in just the last couple of days. I wish I could type. With a few different things here. A couple of things we discovered as well were not actually listed in the changelog in an interesting way. Unless it's, I don't think it's mentioned in this one either. Some sort of rather interesting stuff that is now possible as well that did not used to be before, or that will work better now than it used to be, such as being able to edit standard in with Subble if you want to. I'm sure there's going to be some cool stuff for that, but there's a couple of things that actually are in this build that weren't mentioned in the devlog, along with all the various bug fixes. And of course, this window pops up when you get a new update. Always better to look at these things. I wish sometimes that they were a little bit longer. I like to go through and just sort of see all of the things that are new and fixed. Sometimes it's things that I'd never even realized were bugs, like fix the wrong order of yes no buttons in GTK dialogues under Linux, for example. There's a couple of theme related things here, right? Like improved scroll puck visibility and adaptive theme not respecting the themed title bar setting. Also, the changelog is now respecting the theme better. It's dark instead of light, which is usually a problem for me. But there's also this as well. If we create a brand new tab, it ends up with this greenish tint along the top of the tab to let us know that this is a brand new tab that has never been saved before, which I thought was kind of an interesting thing. I noticed it happening a little bit last night, but I never really thought too much about it until Ultra Instinct mentioned it in the Sublime Text Discord, and I was like, yeah, now that you mentioned that, I did see that, and I didn't. I was working on something else at the time. I didn't put together what actually happens there, which is sort of like a neat thing. But there's also other stuff that happens here as well. Like if we touch test that.txt and then open that file, we end up with that particular file there. Now, if I was to delete that file, the tab gets a red tint on it to let us know that the content of this file isn't missing because the file was deleted, which is distinct from a file that might just happen to be empty, or which happens to be a new file like that. Plus, note that if this had unsaved changes, sorry, I did that the wrong way there. Save changes to that before closing. If I was to take it back to here and close this, it mentions that the file was deleted and asks if you want to save it before it is closed, which it's just like a little polished thing, but that really does like add a lot to something that might impinge on you as you're about to do something, that there's something going on there. And we never actually played with this, but there are new theme variables related to this that Ben was pointing out in the stream last night, in the Discord last night, that I thought I would mention on the stream, is what I meant to say. Tints for tabs, unselected tabs. I should mention I'm really pleased with how the new themes have these variables in them that makes things so much easier to tweak as a whole. So let's see, we ended up with 75% of respondents did not know. Let's go ahead and end that poll so it doesn't clog up the chat for too long. I didn't realize that it was filling up the whole box. That's sort of a fun thing. So yeah, but this really does make very... Yeah. Wow. 8 votes. Hey. That's some fun stuff. I should do that more on my Twitch streams as well. What was I saying here? Historically, I've never done a ton of tweaking of themes. The most complicated theme-related thing that I'd ever done for a long time was modifying the theme so that for files that are tracked under Git, not only those, I'm showing you those like you can actually see them. I forgot. Normally I'm in a different window. Because if you were to do something like look at something that's tracked by Git, these little icons tell you that, you know, this folder contains untracked files, or this file, no, this file is modified. Those normally only just apply that little colored dot. I modified the theme so that it would mark the whole file as well. That's the most complicated thing that I've ever done when it comes to tweaking themes. But this new functionality that we've got in Sublime Text 4, where the theme supports variables, and Will did a ton of work in coming up with all of these settings, so that if there's anything about the theme that you want to tweak, it's so much easier now than it ever would have been before. It's just really kind of, you know, cool, like changing the names of things that are kind, or the border art, or the icon opacity. Now let me look here in the actual Discord, because this is something that Ben mentioned. My chair is stuck. Pardon me. Oh, there we go. Let's see. What were we probably talking in the support channel for something like that? File tab, close, dark tint, modified, deleted. File tab, close. It's one of these. Whoops. Maybe I probably should have went from the top on that one. Yeah, that probably should have copied it, huh? What did we say? File tab, close, dark. Huh, interesting. They do not appear in this, although they do appear in what he pointed out. Let's look for modified. That's weird. Oh, you know what? Maybe they're in the default theme, and this one extends the default theme. That seems like it may well be a thing. That's not something I actually looked into previously. Although I have been in this particular area, if you watch the video that I came up with that released on Monday, because we were talking about changing the color of tabs so that you can see what content is inside of them. And by default, tabs sort of fade into the background color, so you can only see the active one, which sort of obviates getting any sort of action out of that. But you know, just a little bit of this action, changing a simple theme rule, which I posted a link to in the description of that particular video, really does make that a little bit easier. And I was noticing while I was doing that, because I don't normally do a lot of theme-related things, that it's remarkably easier now. Oh, the one thing I was going to look here, untracked. There is not a variable for the untracked color. If you want to raise a bug in the Sublime Text issue tracker, the themes have for version control system integrations, knowing if a file is modified, missing, staged, added, deleted, or unmerged. But what it doesn't have is files that are untracked. Ben, hello, welcome to the stream. We were just looking at and talking about the new stuff in the latest build with the green mark on the top of the one file and the red mark on the deleted files. And I was looking in the adaptive theme to see where the variables you mentioned were declared, but it looks like they're not in there. Are they in the default theme? Do variables get inherited that way? File tab, close, dark, deleted, and close, light, delete. Yeah, indeed. That's sort of it makes sense to me that that's the case. Does that mean that all the variables that are in adaptive are here because they were modified from this one? If I look to the defaults over there, system 11, 12, 13, 24. At some level, it seems like they should maybe be redefined in adaptive, because otherwise you might not know they're there. But, I mean, I'm certainly not going to be tweaking things up like that. If you watched Monday's video, you know how good I am at coming up with the color schemes related to things, which is to say, not that great. But that is, I was mentioning, I'm not sure if you were here for that part or not, that and the way that the close dialog tells you when you're closing a deleted file that the file was deleted is kind of like on the spectrum of things a very small change, but like a really awesome polished change that really adds to the overall feel of the application and the attention to detail that you guys put into stuff. And I believe also someone earlier was mentioning how was it Joe? The changelog mentions even more enhancements to speed with very large files. Oh yeah, even better performance from large files. Wow. Yeah. How is your day going so far? We're riding the excitement of Stream 100 here. And I was also going to delve a little into a question someone asked on the Stack Overflow about running a snippet of Python code with every run. He basically wants to do the thing where you reopen input and output and point it at a file, I believe is probably what that's doing. And he doesn't want to have to add it to every file. And I could think of at least one way to do something like that, which involves using a plugin, I'm not sure, and changing the name of the file that's being executed so you can generate a temporary one. But I was going to investigate, does the Python interpreter have the ability that, like some do, that you can pass it some code to execute and it will, in addition to the file that you've passed it, without going interactive? Because that would actually be a very easy way to fix that. But I may be conflating Lua in my head. Ah, interesting. Is that the new syntax change introduced a regression for large files? It would reparse the whole file every change. I noticed, and the funny thing is, I updated my build, as soon as I could, and spent the day working. And I was working on some stuff after the fact as well, when it was mentioned in the Discord that what used to happen for PHP files now happens for other things instead, and one of them was anything related to package dev and its syntaxes and the like. And I thought, no, that's funny. I've been doing stuff. I haven't run into that. And then I woke up and I was doing something and I tried to open settings, and there was a visible delay between when the settings I told it to open the settings and when the file actually opened. And I thought, oh, hey, yeah, I'm using package dev. There's a custom syntax there. And then there was already a build out that fixes that particular issue, and the problem is resolved now. It's it must be exciting to know that now that the build is out, you basically have free reign to just, whenever there's something that's cool that you want to push out, that you can just do it and you don't have to gather them up in the standard way. I find that sort of thing very freeing. It's the sort of thing that we can do in open source type projects, but it tends to not work that way at work. And there's the rigmarole of putting out a release, and that there's a thing that is fixed and you want it to be deployed because people keep asking you questions about it, but the powers that be won't let us release until certain points, until there's usually a certain number of fixes that have been made, or a certain number of features, except in exceptional circumstances, and it's like a giant drag. While I have you here, is the indexer supposed to run at startup? because I've noticed a few people mentioning that, and it seems to me like the indexers should only be indexing new files, and otherwise it would be cached. But to be honest, I've never worked in a code base with so many files that indexing takes more than a fraction of a second anyway, so I can't say for certain one way or the other how that's actually supposed to work. But it sounds like maybe that is related to the thing that you're doing here, and people that were finding that problem would now have it resolved. I'm not sure. Boop. Oh, and various other people being unhappy about the upgrade and various things not working. I would not have guessed at the number of people having problems with the upgrade because they have overloads or overrides in place for things. I really didn't think that many people actually use them. I have always considered that most of the time if someone has an override, they probably did it by accident by using package resource viewer, and unofficially speaking, statistics seem to bear out. The indexer runs when things change. If the syntax changes, it'll rerun. Yeah, see, that's sort of the thing that I thought, but I wouldn't expect that you start up Sublime and you have a package or a project open and it decides it needs to just do a quick little reindex, unless there was an issue like it thought that the syntax was changing because the cache wasn't working or something along those lines. Let's go ahead and do I have another window? I do have another window. Kind of, we'll leave well enough alone on that one. But this is just sort of for my own curiosity, because someone asked on Stack Overflow. Oh, and actually, I totally set this up specifically so I could do that, so I probably could copy that over. I got distracted. This person wants to run this snippet every time they run anything Python related. And also on Sublime, this build system doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work is because it's using shell redirections, but it's not using shell true. So I think I added a comment to that effect down at the bottom there. But some things, like the first thing that comes to mind is Lua, provides you the ability to execute arbitrary lines of code and then go into actually executing the file that you provided. Specify the command to execute. This terminates the option list. So something along those lines, I would imagine, is probably what is interesting. When the script is passed as first argument or the -C option is used, enter interactive mode after executing the script or the command. All right, that may be an issue, I suppose. Well, let's see. If we jump down here. Oh, did I go too far? I did, didn't I? I went too far with that. Let's see. When called with -C, it executes the Python statements given as command. Here, command may contain multiple statements separated by new lines. Leading white space is significant in Python statements. In non-interactive mode, the entire input is parsed. See, it really seems like that you could actually do something like that, right? Probably don't need 4 of those. I'm not even sure why I might have had that. Doesn't still execute the script, huh? That's kind of unfortunate, because that would be a very easy fix to this person's particular problem. Unless there was more to it than that. Any Python experts in the house? The only other thing that comes to mind is if you wanted to do this in a build system, a custom target that adds lines. It generates a temporary file based on the file that you're executing. But that seems kind of heavyweight for something like this. Although I have done something similar, so it probably wouldn't be too terrible a thing to do. Is there an option to tell it a script to execute? Oh, this terminates the option list. Oh, maybe I did that in the wrong order. Can you do this? I'm assuming not. Yeah, one or the other, not both. That is an unfortunate turn of events right there. Because otherwise that would be fairly easy to pull off. Probably don't need to be watching any Star Trek on this operation. Let me do a quick little check here. On my own profile, perhaps, would be the thing. Let's see. My repositories. For this one. Let's see. We're going to need to do something here. Canceling. Must have been 12. I'm going to copy that link. The thing that we're going to be referring to here, assuming that I did this correctly, is not that one. It's the other one. And that's my bummer. We're going to refer to, whoops, pardon me. I cannot type tonight to save my life. This one. This one is the one that we are actually interested in here. Let me find the appropriate thing here so I can call up the file. That, yeah, so we're going to be referring to a plugin from this particular video here. Let me just grab the contents of this thing and we can take a look at it and see. Whoa, that is bright, man. It would look a little bit something like that. And I probably saved this in my user packages custom exec, like so. So there's a few different things that are going on in this, and that video will go through these in more detail if you'd like to look at them later, if you're watching the replay of this and you have questions that you have. I haven't actually tested these in Sublime Text 4 yet, but I think everything should still be the same. And the idea here is that when you create a build system, by default, the exec command, this one right here, is the one that is used to actually execute the external program and display the output into the panel. But if you want, you can include a target key in your Sublime build file and give it the name of a command, and then the build will run that command instead of exec. And the obvious example of that is using terminus to execute something that is interactive. You use the target key to tell Sublime that when it runs the build, it should use a terminus command instead of its own default command, and then terminus does the work of making sure that there's a terminal running. But there's more that you can do with just that sort of thing, and this plugin shows some examples of those things. The first one is the idea that whenever you execute a build, this panel will pop up, and there's a setting called show panel on build that is responsible for doing that, and you can set it to true if you always want the panel to show up, and you can set it to false if you don't. But what if you wanted to have a particular build system that didn't do something like this? Then this plugin is an example of a very easy thing that you can do, which Basically, it implements a command that is a subclass of exec, so it does exactly the same thing that exec would do, except that when the command is executed, the first thing it does is turn off the show panel on build command if you told it to, and then put it back when you're done, so that you can do specific builds or use exec in a key binding without it popping up the thing at the bottom there. It is kind of habit forming, isn't it? I may have mentioned, I guess Python has different scopes for this. In Python, it's just a language constant, as opposed to in JavaScript, where you can tell that it's true and false. But I still have, from the stream where we did this, I set up my true and false things in TypeScript and JavaScript and the like to be glowing red and glowing green for false and true respectively, because we set it up in that stream just as I was showing, like, you could do this, and I kind of like it, so I've left it in place, which was kind of funny. Which is, again, the same as this. I set these things to glow because I thought, well, let's see how they look. And now I'm kind of stuck on it. It looked a little bit different when I first did that. Monakai was the default color scheme and not Mariana. Oh, that's unfortunate. I should have an extra line there. Let's do that. So the basics for what we're talking about here is, if you need to provide a custom command in a build to do something and you still want to execute some external program, the exec command knows how to do that. So if you could subclass it, you can put a little bit of extra work in place for when it actually starts running. So we can see here, this code happens when the command runs, then the superclass version of this runs, which is the actual exec command, and then this runs after. So it allows us to do stuff a little bit before the build and a little bit after without having to do any of that pesky stuff that the exec command does, because it's a fairly large file. Similarly here, the idea for this one is, what if you wanted the selection to be one of the build variables? Hello and good night. If it makes you feel any better, when I set the stream to be public, it was the correct time, and when I checked today, as I was about to go live, it said the stream was starting at 11:10, which by unstrange coincidence, I believe, was the time of day when I actually set it to be public. But it didn't say that when I did it, because the last time it got it wrong by 12 hours, I quadruple checked everything that was set up, and I checked again to make sure that it was right before I did it. So YouTube is definitely doing something funky, and I don't know what's going wrong. But thanks for stopping by, nonetheless. If we did a little bit of this. You know that when you're executing a build system, there's various variables like the name of the current file that you can use. And this is a bad example of that, but there's a few of these. The path of the current file, the current project. It is. However, we can do polls now in chat, so that's fun. Someone earlier in the stream was recommending that we do a little bit of do a poll to see if tabs versus spaces. And I'm kind of curious, but also I'm kind of not. Thanks, Noffel. This list of variables that you can use in a build system are built in to how things work, but it is possible to augment them, because if you have your own custom command, such as this, pardon me for bumping the mic there. In this build, terminus exec is the command that's used to execute the build instead of exec, and canceling the build uses terminus cancel, which allows us to do something like pass in this extra argument that normally doesn't go in a build system, but everything inside of the Sublime build file is passed to the command that's used as the target as arguments. And so we have the ability to expand variables other than these if we want to. And this is a very simple example of doing that and adding a variable named selection that is the text that's currently selected. If you wanted to, for some reason, use that in a build system. And I believe the example was something like, if you wanted to execute a specific test and you had several test commands, you could just double click one and then like right click and pick run test if you add a build command to the context menu or something, and it would be able to infer the command based on the text that was actually selected. And here what this does is gather all of the variables for the current window, add in the selected text as one, expand it, and then run. And this is sort of a fun exercise. If you were to run this code inside of anywhere that is a Sublime Text window, you see information like file, file base name, file extension. There's just the file name. There's the file path. Here's the packages folder, the platform folder. This may seem familiar because there's file name, file path, file base name, file extension, folder, project, project path, project name. Now these ones don't have any values here because this particular window doesn't have those things. If I was to open up, say for example here, and go to Twitch chat for example and do the same thing, now we can see there is a project base name and a project name and a project path and a folder. All those variables that you can use in build systems are available to you as plugins, and you don't even have to do anything special in order to get it either. And the way that this thing works is it gets the entire list of variables and then just adds an extra one to it, that is the selected text. But the thing that is perhaps the most interesting bit here is this one, because what this does is execute just the selected text rather, and it does it by creating a temporary file and running that temporary file. So when it comes to, I have the following snippet which I use with every code I run. Is there any way I can make these 2 lines run with every Python file I run? The answer to that is entirely possible, because you could have a custom command similar to this one where instead of getting the selection and writing it to a temporary file, it actually created a temporary file that was the lines you want to execute, and then maybe a directive to load and execute the Python file that you want, or load that the current file's contents and add it to that temporary file and just run the temporary file. And then it would do exactly what you want. At the expense of error messages would look weird, because they would end up being based on the name of the temporary file instead of the name of the actual file. And that kind of seems like it might be important. I'm not entirely sure. But we could totally work up an example and answer this guy's question if we wanted to do something like that. And yeah, his other problem here is that when you use command in a build system, you provide this array of things, and the first thing is the name of the program to execute, and then everything after that, each individual item, is an argument to the program that you are trying to execute. And that means you're executing Python and you're giving it an argument of greater than sign, and then giving it an argument of this file here. And Python is probably not super jazzed about that, because when it comes to input and output redirection like this, it's not the program that parses the command line to figure that out. It's the shell interpreter that's being executed. So you need to, as maybe my comment down here will say, you need to add shell true. Is that the person that was answering this? Probably an error in the syntax. Well, that could well be. I didn't verify that his build was actually correct. It'll also not work if that particular folder doesn't happen to exist as well. I tend to recommend using shell command instead of command if you're doing anything shell related, because it just tends to work better. Although I believe using command and setting shell true has the underlying Python system do the exact same thing as you would do if you did it manually. But I mean, why tempt the fates, if you will? Let's see. I guess the interesting thing is, what do these lines actually do? Because I'm imagining from looking at it that this is the Python equivalent of doing a reopen on standard in and standard out, so that the input comes from a file instead of from the actual file handle, so that you can run a program and cram the input in directly from an input file. Presumably correct. Let's play with the plugin a little bit, because I have not done any plugin stuff since the last stream, and I do kind of miss that sort of thing. Plus, it'll be interesting to see how well this might actually work in practice in Sublime Text 4, because I haven't created any custom things like this. As long as finish is still in there, I guess it would probably still be fine, right? We can easily check that. I know there's at least one thing, and it might be called something slightly different now than it was before, if you wanted to do this in Sublime Text 4. It used to be called something a little bit different than it is now. But there's like a build that times itself out and cancels itself if it doesn't finish running in a specifically specified timeout. I remember when I helped someone with that, that was something that required two different things. Let's see. Let's do this. So there's just sort of like some stub code available here. Python, oh sorry, yeah, Python with redirect exec command. Do we really need to do that? No, we don't. But we do need to say that it can't build if the current file There's an intriguing thing to be done here, because if we want to... Hello, Ashwin. How's your day going today? Hopefully well. We're doing a little bit of playing with some plugins here in answer to a question that someone was asking on the Stack Overflow. Highlight just one bit of the word? What you mean? You'll have to tell me what it was that I did. Like this? I tend to just do things without thinking about it, so if you can tell me what exactly the thing was that I did, I can try to reproduce it and watch what my hands are doing. But if you hold down the Alt key when you move with the arrow keys, then you jump to subwords, and if you hold down Shift while you do it, you can select as well. Control goes word by word. I use that one a little bit more often to jump along. It's kind of like the Vim equivalent of using whatever you use to jump by words in Vim. Let's see. It's going to bug me now. Yeah, W. That's right. Why did I think that wasn't the thing? It has been fairly okay. There was quite a few long meetings that happened, but so yeah, Control goes word by word and Alt goes to subword. So it has knowledge of camel case in a way that Control doesn't. I probably don't use that nearly as much as I should most of the time. And of course, if you use Shift in combination with those, you can select certain specific bits and the like, or do stuff like that if you want to rename parts of stuff. We're here to help, Joe. So if the idea of this is that when you try to run something, it's going to crank this onto the front of a temporary file, there's a couple of things that we could do here. One is take the file directly off of the disk and add it to the temporary file before it's executed. And the other would be to just do the equivalent of, R equals sublime.region 0 len view, and then S is equal to view.subster R, and end up with the entire contents of the file. And then just stick that. The difference there being that it would always execute what you see in the window and not what appears on disk. And I would think that for sanity purposes, you probably want it to work the same as a regular build, right? I would think. A problem with this, now that we think about this, is that we need to do this to provide a new variable, and the new variable, much like this is named selection, would be name of Python file that's like stubbed out or something, because the magic of a build system, such as it is that most of the keys in the Sublime build file, not all, but some or most, are used as arguments directly to the command that's being executed. Not all of them. And if you use package dev, they're color coded. So for example, target and cancel, those are examples of keys in a build that won't be passed as arguments, because they're used by Sublime to figure out what command should be executed. And similarly, selector is used to select the build. But these are items that will be passed directly to the command, and this as well. We don't have any drop game action in the YouTube stream because I don't have a custom YouTube bot. Might be something that we do at some point, but it's not something that's available right now. Although I suppose I could probably try to work out a way for Nightbot to trigger that in the same kind of way as it triggers the brain, but that's a little bit more complicated than all that. Well, I guess it probably wouldn't be too terrible. I don't know that drop game is a thing that's that common on YouTube, all things being equal. That should work, I think. It may take a while because the bot seems to be kind of pokey. Certainly it worked earlier, unless I broke something. That's weird. In theory, if it responds, it should be able to trigger that. So I'm not sure what the deal is with that. But we'll have to worry about that as another time. I do have some plans on changing up the stream setup a little bit so that the way the chat and my little window under here work are a little bit different. But I cannot find the time to do something like that. You know, it's just ridiculous. Did it actually, the one that I did was manual. Did it actually do it a second time? Let's see if that one pops anything up. But yeah, you cannot forget to have lunch. Have a lunch for me. If you're having pizza for lunch, have 2 lunches for me. If you're having some sort of Asian cuisine like Japanese or Thai, then have 3 lunches for me, because I haven't been able to do that for a very long time. Yeah, there's something wrong with the connection between the bot and the overlay, because it can't actually trigger it. But that ridiculous latency in the chat is probably going to get in the way of pretty much everything, I would imagine. Let's swap that around the other way. That still works, right? Yeah. Warfare Wipes, hello. Just wanted to pop in and say thanks for the series. Been a long time Sublime Text user, but only recently decided to learn about plugins. Ah, awesome. I'm glad I was able to help. And of course, you know, if you have questions about that sort of thing, live streams, great time to ask. We're currently working on a little bit of a plugin here for somebody. We'll see how well we can actually get on with it while we're interfacing with the chat and the like. It has been a little bit of a while since I've worked on anything plugin related in Sublime, unless you count last week's live stream where we did a little quick something so that you could close all tabs except for the current one with a single key press in the current file group, because there's a command that does that. Close other tabs, but you can't bind it to a key directly. But we made a little shim to make that happen, because in Sublime pretty much everything is possible. Yeah. Lunch is definitely more important than Sublime Text bug fixes, unless you're adding, you know, video editing support. Then you should code with one hand and eat a sandwich with the other. Okay, let's just go ahead and do it. If view.filename, is none, then we're going to do this. True Bark, hello. Gonna do a little bit of that. We wouldn't call this get selection, would we? We would probably call it get temp file instead for the view. And then instead of selection, we might call this Python. We'll call this temp file, like that. Yeah. Which is going to be that. We expand the variables, we run. This is the part where we actually do the work. This, as we determined, is going to be slightly different. It's going to be on finished and not finish if we're doing this in Sublime Text 4. If you're doing this in Sublime Text 3, that would in fact just be finished. The very first thing you should always do is let the main build system do its thing, and then remove the temporary file and clear stuff out. And that's probably okay. And all we need is something related to this. Handle, actually, well, that first, to write the Python stub to it. Can we use a context here to make Hello, Snorri Joe. The dog is enjoying a nap under the desk. Is FD Open a context manager type thing so that we could say with os.fdopen as handle do so that all this stuff will be cleaned up? Let's see. Boop, boop, boo. Return an open file object connected to the file descriptor. This is an alias of the open built-in function and accepts the same arguments. Okay. So maybe not. Or maybe yes. It doesn't specifically mention in the documentation that that's even a thing that's possible. I'm remembering that correctly, right? Like I say, it's so infrequent that I do anything. Oh, I need the handle. Yeah. Well, I mean, it doesn't hurt to actually do a thing, right? I can't even remember if that's the order that you do that in, to be perfectly honest. But there's only one way to find out, right? We print that, then we need to have a custom Python build system to actually do something with this. So that's not going to be this one. We'll copy that. We'll say, whoops. Let's create a new build system. Let's go ahead and paste. Oh, I didn't copy that. Dang it. There we go. Save that as Python test, for example. And we're going to add a target key, and the target is Python with redirect exec. And we're going to add a cancel key, which will be kill true, so that we can cancel such a build. In all other regards, this would do the exact same thing as the standard Python build systems would do. Let's get rid of the variant, because that's probably not going to be interesting to anybody here. So if we were to try to execute, well, this, because it has a file name, but it doesn't appear on disk. That's interesting. Python test. Of course, it doesn't run, but did it actually print the name of a temporary file? Yes, it did. And then presumably it got cleaned up after the fact. If we try to open that file, we should probably see that there's nothing in it, right? Right, cool. If we comment this out and do it again, and then we look, is that the same thing? I would imagine not. Whoops. That may or may not have opened what I thought it did. Really? Oh, whoops. All right. There were probably mistakes were made. That resolves that, though. Oops. Nothing going in there, huh? Let's see if it works better this way, because I may or may not know what I'm talking about with this stuff, don't you know? Dun, dun. And edit that one. Is it just me, or should these files have something inside of them? Because it really seems like they should have something inside of them, don't you know? Ooh, almost tipped my chair over. That would have been terrible. This is sort of a fun little debuggy type thing, because why is that not working? That's just never going to get old, is it? Yeah, that's what I thought. Middle clicking doesn't do what I think it does in Terminus. So we definitely created that file. Let's put this back to the way that it was and make sure that it still works that way too. Go. Boop. And then we open it. This is the one. We copy it. And it's in there. Cool. All right. That was the whole point of that, was to make that actually be more correct. So we don't need this because that part's just going to automatically happen. But what we do need to have happen here is we need to open up the other file too. Let's see. Let's do a very quick check here. OS.path exists. Return true if path refers to an existing path or an open file descriptor. Returns false for broken symbolic links. It's probably good enough, right? Should work okay. Or not. Something like that is what we want here. So that the idea is if you try to run something like this file doesn't actually appear on disk. If you try to run the build that says cannot build, no file associated with the current view, and nothing happens, which is what you want if you want to assume that you can open a file with a given name and stick something into it. Let's add an extra that there. Whether or not this actually works is going to be the tricky. So let's, for our purposes here, comment that out so that we can verify that this is more or less still going to do what we want it to do. We're going to want it to keep printing the temporary file for the foreseeable time so we can make sure that things actually work. The only thing that we really need to fix is this. Let's say handle.write, source.read. Is there an easier way to do that in Python? Perhaps. Let's see. If we look at this file, it appears to be the contents of this plugin plus some stuff we crammed onto the top. And unfortunately for us, it's got that weirdness going on there. But I mean that is pretty much all we require for this, right? That's going to be the temporary file. You probably want this to actually be closed. If you were going to do this, instead of file, you'd use the variable that we came up with here, which is this. And all the places where file exists, you'd use that, and then you'd put 2 slashes in front to make sure that does the thing that you expect it to do. That's pretty much it, right? So we probably need, say, some sort of actual sample file. Oh, that seems like it's a good enough one. Oops. So much stuff laying around. So if we did this with Python test, ooh, didn't like that. On line 17. This is the other issue with this. The line count is now no longer correct. Let's see. What is that invalid syntax? Oh, right. Because they're broken on purpose. Haha. All right. We're the smart party. So, I mean, probably works, right? We have created a build system for Python that makes sure that a certain bit of code is stuck to the front of the thing. Issues with this are perhaps some of the following. That's the error that we get. If we try to navigate there, it is opening up the wrong file. Let's see. That is a file. It just so happens that it was deleted. I believe is probably, well, no, we don't have it actually deleting anything yet, do we? We don't need this one anymore. We can go away. Theory, don't delete the file if the build fails so that you can navigate to it. So we probably actually need the exact file now that I think about it. We go to unfinished, the other unfinished. We need this. Well, if we just sort of grang this entire bit out of this, we can bring it over here just temporarily. Let's double check what this actually does. If there's not something, leave. If we told it to, if it was killed, we write canceled. In which case you're not going to get any sort of error message in that particular case. If we're not told to be quiet, do this. If the proc was killed, do that. Nothing here sets proc or self.proc to any value, right? So it is entirely safe for us after that part finishes to say if the procedure wasn't killed and how about this? Am I doing this right? the logic of this could conceivably be a little crunky. If the exit code is 0 or the exit code is none, then it's just worked. So if the exit code is not equal to 0, I would imagine means that it failed, right? Oh, we probably need that other line too. Where did I pull it out of there when I didn't intend to? Yeah, I did. Yeah, probably safe. If the procedure wasn't killed and exit code is not equal to 0. Oh, actually, I'm kind of doing this backwards here, now that I think about this. If proc is not equal to self-proc or proc.killed, then leave. We don't need to do anything in that particular case. Otherwise, we need to do this. Don't delete the file unless the build worked. And then these lines go down here. That's probably the easiest way to pull that off. So the downside to this is that the temporary file ends up hanging around for an extended period of time if there's actually an error. But the theory is that anything in the temporary folder can be cleared. So I would consider this a special case of weirdness happening. So we should be able to try to run this, and it's going to get mad. And then when we look, we can actually see what it is. I guess it probably should have a Python extension as well, so that when you open it, it'll actually work, right? Is that something that we can set up here? Probably not, huh? I can't remember if that is... if suffix is specified, the file name will end with that suffix. Otherwise, there will be no suffix. Make stemp does not put a dot between the file name and the suffix. If you need one, put it at the beginning of suffix. Okay, so what we're going to do is this. We're going to say suffix equals .py, like so. Well, maybe we'll do this. Then, when you run this, you get an error. You click, you navigate, it's actually syntax highlighted. You can see what it was that you did wrong. You probably don't want to edit this file because as you can see, if we are to run it again, there would still be an error, and now there would be double stubbed ups in the file. You know, you can only do so much. Oh, yeah. That's neither here nor there. I think we're okay with that. But this... Hello, Steve. Welcome. We're doing a little bit of plugin development here for someone that asked a question on Stack Overflow, specifically because they want to be able to execute any Python file with some stuff stuck onto the front. And this is the easiest, well, not the easiest way, but a simple way to do something like that anyway. Oh, hello. That is a different name than what you normally have. Did you have a different account that you're watching? I would not have thought that someone named Steve would be Ayush. I'm just thinking if we can make this a little bit cooler somehow. Theoretically, with an appropriate event listener, we could know that a file that is being opened is a temporary file that came from part of one of our builds. And if that was the case, it could detect when you close it and delete itself from disk. Some vague reasons. In any case, welcome to the stream. Yeah, I know. That's you're going to be unhappy about that. That's quite all right. We're going to also need something extra in here. And this is where things start to get a little hairy. The file that gets executed by us, if we ignore various errors that got cranked out because I tried to delete something, we're always executing the fully qualified path name. What we probably want, and I always do this, is this. Because we want the current working directory to be the location of wherever the current file is stored, because the theory I'm imagining is that these are special. So let's do this. We'll go here. We'll move sample.py to here, and we'll open sample.py. So this one can go away. Really loving that line there. Gotta say, we don't need that file any longer. Close you. So this is the thing that's gonna get executed. This is the stuff that it's going to stick in there. And in theory, that means that if I actually don't uncomment that, when we run this, presuming the code is correct, oh, I guess it probably needs some files, huh? All right, so I ran it, nothing happened, and here's the output. So it worked. We probably don't need that part in there anymore. I just wish it didn't have a circle instead of a cross when opening a new file. Oh, for a deleted file? I never actually paid that much attention to that, to be perfectly honest. It is pretty cool, though. Open file for writing must exist. Yeah. So if we look at this guy's question, I have the following snippet which I use with every code I run. Is there any way I can make these two lines run with every Python file I run? Yes, we just did that. Also on Sublime Text, this is the build configuration I use to redirect output to a file, but it's not working. The reason it's not working, we already pointed that out. You need to add shell true to this, assuming this is actually a valid build, which is easily something that we could also check as well by doing this. I mean, I can't see why that would be valid. for new files. Oh, you don't like the way that the dot turns to an X in that case? I suppose. I'm kind of surprised that those are a little... I'm just glad that it doesn't prompt. I cannot include any lines in the code because I'm practicing competitive programming, so I usually copy and paste the code from the question to Sublime. If there was a different method, I wouldn't need to include the above snippet every time. Also, for pasting, I could simply use Control A and Control V. Yeah. Well, kinda. I mean, it's... well, no, I guess not. No. It would be blue if it was. In fact, it's kind of funny that it's not. Now it's changed. Here's something. Fortunately, that is cool. So, yeah. That's probably something you could do with a theme. You could change it to not change into an X on hover. Or not have a circle there. Have a different icon if that particular thing is there. Say, as I mentioned earlier in the stream, theming is totally not a thing that I tend to do at any given point. Can anything be done in the build configuration? Well, someone liked that up. That's nice. It's not executing properly. Probably an error in the syntax. Yeah, I don't think that that's a build problem per se. I can't see any reason why this wouldn't work. If you added shell true to this. Yeah, it's quite neat. I never thought that I needed that before. The thing that I might actually tweak about that, and this is entirely me here, but we did this. The color for untracked files, new files that don't have anything on disk yet, is sort of this orangey color as I have it set up here. So I think I'd probably change that value to be that, because that's sort of the color that my brain looks for knowing that a file is new. I guess that doesn't really apply because once it's saved to disk, it would stop being there, right? Oh, thanks for stopping by, Joe. We're probably only going to go for another half hour or so. I have some other stuff that I need to get done this evening. As a matter of fact, let me just very quickly go over here and double check that this window is... Yeah, that one can go away. But I have some tasks that I have to do, so we'll probably wrap stuff up fairly soon. Well, that's true. And now, I mean, I can't not have glowy booleans, you know? If only they could sort of drip some particles down, but what can you do? Hope to see you in the next stream, Joe. Maybe even in the Twitch stream that we're going to be doing tomorrow, where we will be, by strange coincidence, working on bot-related stuff. As a sneak peek, I created a very simple... if you've been following me on Twitch, then this may make more sense to you than if you don't follow me on Twitch. But the idea that we're going for here is that we're working on a bot and we want to have multiple commands. So here's, for example, is this. And if I was to run the test command, it says on the test command, yay, which is what you see up here. I could change this to hooray, like this. Save that file. Now I can say rehash test, and it reloads that file. And now this command is the new command. And you can also disable test, and then test does nothing, or enable test, and then test will work again. So just as a sneak peek, this is what we're going to be working on for the next so that each individual command, and I currently have like the 3 of them, they're down here behind my head, but they're all the same, so there's nothing really to see there, will be able to have the code for them distinct from everything else and be able to reload them without having to stop and restart the bot. And we're going to implement a text editor directly into the dashboard so that it's possible to add commands and to tweak commands directly from the dashboard as well. That's the next list of stuff that we're going to be doing on the Twitch streams coming up in the next little bit. Is there a reason why this wouldn't work? I can't imagine. If that was the thing, and we added the shell true to this, like I told them to, and did sample delete me on that, and you tried to run this, and I picked shoot. Oh, hey, wait a minute. Did I save that in the wrong spot? Yeah, I did. Shoot. Hang tight. I forgot. I didn't create that in the way that I normally do. Put that into the appropriate location. Yeah, that file can go away now because we probably don't care about that. And we run. Says build finished. What did I call that stupid file? Well, it doesn't generate an error, so it's got that going on. We executed it with this build. So yeah, that is kind of intriguing that that didn't actually do anything. Because it seems like it would. I generally recommend something like this. And then we don't need that line at all anymore. And then well, why wouldn't that work? That is an intriguing little bit of action here. Maybe because it's not buffered. Yeah, totally works from the command line. Maybe the minus U is special. I probably should have deleted the file first. Nope, that works too. So what's so special about this that it doesn't... Is it something to do with that particular path, maybe? Nope. Well, I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of confused why that doesn't do what one would expect it to do. But, I mean, at least it's consistent. And I'm not seeing anything in the console, right? Oh, probably don't need to be printing that every time. That in concert with this is the thing we got to remember to post. And I mean, we solved the guy's problem, but I want to know why this does not do what one might expect it to do, because it really seems like it should, you know? Let's clear the console. Let us make sure we're using the correct one. That's what it thinks it's doing. And now it's there. Huh. Maybe I didn't change the build and I was running the other one instead. That could be. I thought I picked it, but no, that totally appears to work. Let's put it back to the way that it was. Ooh. Okay, what if it was that way? If that was the build, and again, we'll choose, make sure it's actually the one. Sample delete me. Says it's running. It's hung in the background, though. What did he say was the problem? It's not executing properly. Well, I mean, can't argue with you there. That totally doesn't seem to be doing anything. That one, right? It says it's building, but... Huh. For testing purposes, I think it's important to do something here. I'm going to open up Sublime Text 3. We can close a bunch of these tabs. Yeah, I don't... On Windows, there's a distinction between shell command and command if you don't use shell true. There shouldn't be here. By the same token, it's just using exec to execute something, so it is kind of at the whims of what it actually started. So there could be something weird about the Python library, but yeah, I mean, shell command assumes a string, passes it in as a string, and shell is set to false, I think, if you do it that way. The shell true thing is kind of hinky. Let's create a new build system over here. We'll name it Python test like this. Like so. I'll create a new plugin. And we'll copy that and call it custom exec. And change those like that. And you're the one that I want. Choose a build, Python test, and it probably did something, right? RM output, build this, and look at that. It took 0 seconds. That's fancy, and it worked. Right. So this works in Sublime Text 3 and Sublime Text 4. The only thing you need to keep in mind is that onFinished is named something different in Sublime Text 3 as compared to Sublime Text 4. But apart from that, this will entirely do what that guy is interested in doing. So all that leaves is to post that as an answer. Also, let's do a little bit of this. Because presumably this is going to be one of those things that eventually ends up in the scraps repository, so we probably want to track it. But, you know, I'm really left wondering why that does not do what one would expect it to do, because it really seems like it should, you know? If it was this one, that's what it says it's running, right? Let's cancel that and double check. Yeah. But that does come from the exec command. Well, what constitutes a compelling reason? Or what constitutes compelling, I guess, would be the thing. I find Sublime Text 4 more compelling than Visual Studio Code, although I haven't used VSC for a very appreciable length of time, because I find the interface in Sublime is sleeker and smoother and faster and more responsible than Visual Studio Code is. And I consider it to be more cluttered because I have no desire to have extra buttons in the middle of the display and such, which is entirely a personal preference on my part. The best thing that I can say is if you have used Sublime Text 4 in the past, or Sublime Text in the past, there's a lot of new stuff in Sublime Text 4. I would give it a shake. You can install it, trial it for free, install LSP, and see how it compares, depending on how you use Visual Studio Code. And if you've never tried Sublime, well, I mean, this goes for any tool and not necessarily Sublime Text. You should always try all related tools if you're curious to see if one of them might work better, or maybe not even all the time, but maybe there are certain things that you could do with one tool or one editor that far outstrips your ability to do that in other tools, and it's just another tool in your toolbox, pun mildly included. But there's a video on the channel about some of the new things that are in Sublime Text 4 if you want to see an example of them. The changelog is rather lengthy, so it's kind of hard to just go through it in the general case. I see. What it prints and what it might actually do are two different things. Yeah, that's sort of the same takeaway I have. I haven't really given Visual Studio Code well, a ton of exercising in that regard. I have used it. I just prefer Sublime Text and its interface and the speed of it, basically, is what it comes down to. And that's perfectly fine. As I'm fond of saying here on streams, on this channel and on the Twitch streams that I do on a regular basis, there's no such thing as one right tool for everybody. Everybody works a little bit of a different way. You might have a different paradigm for how you work, different things that you find useful. So it really is a very, very personal preference. What tool is the best one for you to allow you to get the work done that you want to get done in the least amount of work and the least amount of time, basically. And yeah, I would never presume to say that one is better than another or objectively better for all purposes. That is a very all-encompassing statement that I personally wouldn't be comfortable with. Case in point, I mentioned a few minutes ago, one of the things we're going to be working on in the next couple of Twitch streams is bot-related things. And in order to interface with the dashboard, I'm going to have to create web pages. So I'm looking at a few different ways to create a nice interface, like, for example, maybe React, or what I'm currently looking at is something called Lit, which seems to be the replacement for Polymer based on things. And these are all things that, I knew what it was that I wanted to do, and I found various things that would do that sort of thing. And I'm sort of going through them, looking at them, seeing which one of them seems the nicest, like it might be the best to use. I'm playing around with them and trying to decide. The one thing I'm not doing is searching Google for best web framework for X and assuming that the top hit is definitely going to apply to me in my situation. We kind of have issues with a project we have going on at work right now, in that we're using Mongoose with MongoDB, and while both of these things seem like they are very widely used and very popular, possibly the sheer volume of data that we need to move through them exceeds what normally people would use it for, which may be causing us problems. We're not sure. We're still trying to track how things go. But yeah, I mean, I do not. Yeah, exactly, right. And the same thing could be said for other stuff too. Like, I don't know if I have. Can't type. I have this, which is, if it actually launches, bonk, a tool for working with MongoDB. And, I could make various connections. I don't have anything running at the moment, I don't think. So there's not a lot that I can actually connect to. I don't think that'll actually... Oh, it will actually work. That is actually running. So, I could be doing stuff like looking at the collections in here. And this, is a tool that I could use. Similarly, I could type... I also have the whitest possible window. This also is a tool for working with MongoDB, and I could look at various collections and the like. Different interface. This is an Electron application. The other one is, I believe, a Java application. Compass is another thing that could be used. And I have multiple tools here because I have the one that I tend to like, and then I have the one that the company has provided licenses for because that's what some of the other developers like. So now I have more tools in my toolbox, and for some things, one of them is faster and better than the other. And it's important to note when it comes down to something like that, that it's not necessarily related even to the speed of the application, but also the speed that you can work with it. If you're constantly, if application A is 4 times as performant, but the way that its interface is designed, you're spending a lot of time trying to find the thing you're looking for, then the extra speed boost isn't necessarily helping you. Or one that's slower, may have an interface that makes the things you're trying to do easier for you to find. So even though it's technically not as fast, it still helps you work better. There's a lot of different ways that tools can fit between one person and another. But of course, on this channel, Sublime Text all the way, baby. Threatening on Twitch to try using Visual Studio Code for some editing. But yeah, Visual Studio Code, I don't hate it. I just never really got into using it all that much. I wasn't a super fan. And then part of that is I'm not a super fan of Visual Studio as a whole either. I think that's way too bulky for what I want out of the kind of tool that it is for me personally. And Visual Studio Code is kind of the same thing on a different scale. But all that being equal, I think, based on the time, we should probably call it for this epic episode 100 of Sublime Text Live. We will be back, of course, next week with episode 101. Exactly, right? Their features, they're not bugs. I know you're just doing that as a little bit of a finger poke there, but we're going to be doing some stuff with those, with channel point redeems that are apart from those, like hooking them up to the drop game to make that stuff work a little bit better. Well, not work a little bit better, but do more cool things. I have a few ideas in that regard. I'm sure the chat will come up with many more, so they will not go to waste, but those tasks are pending actually reworking the bot code into a state where it's going to be nicer for us to actually try to implement something. But 20,000 of them you have, you say. Interesting. Speaking of, I don't know if I have a command for this. I presume I do. We'll ask the bot. But this is also linked down in the description of the video, but I do Twitch streams as well. We're going to be live tomorrow and Friday working on bot stuff in Sublime Text. If you have questions, if you think of something that you wanted to ask that you didn't ask tonight, you can feel free to ask those questions in Twitch streams as well. And that is going to do it for this this stream. We will be back next week, probably with a little bit more plugin related work as well, and hopefully a stream that will be scheduled properly so that people actually know that it's happening. That is in sad state of affairs that keeps happening. Thanks to everybody who popped in and watched, and we'll see you in the next stream. And until then, please remember to have a sublime week.